was the summer of 2014, and for my son's bar mitzvah present, just like many Jewish parents, we wanted him to bond with the Holy Land. Oh, it worked perhaps too well. My husband had stayed back at the hotel, and our friends, my son and I, had just stopped in a pharmacy.
Run to the bomb shelter, sweetie. Please hurry. I didn't hear the sirens at first, but the Israelis did. They're used to hearing these things. We ran to the back of the storeroom. It was a 12-foot by 24-foot windowless bomb shelter. My heart's pounding. Boom! Boom! I hear it and feel the percussion of the exploding bombs. I'm trying not to get sick. I look at my 13-year-old son and I think I'll never forgive myself if something happens to him.
That's an excerpt from a speech I gave to the Orange County Jewish Bar Association. It was the first, but not the last time we had to run to a bomb shelter. Our adventure and my transformation is also the subject of my book, Blasted from Complacency, A Journey from Terror to Transformation in Israel. There is no chapter in a parenting book on what to do when a war starts and you're on a family vacation. Think touring extraordinary and sacred sites mixed with cowering in bomb shelters. I'm still trying to get over the Jewish guilt of taking my son to war for his bar mitzvah present. The impact of being human targets helped me understand the plight of Israelis living like this, and it also made me want to work on peace. How Israel is often described on the news is not what I'd seen with my own eyes. And I felt Palestinian parents also preferred their children playing safely in their backyards. The missiles exploded just near enough to blow apart my world as I knew it, forever changing me. And you'd never recognize my life today with what it was like then. I believe I found my life's purpose. Hello, I'm Penny S.Tee, and I'm the host of Peace with Penny. In today's episode of Peace with Penny, we'll be speaking with Harvey Price of Peace Drums. Peace Drums is a unique interfaith initiative promoting peace among Jewish, Muslim, and Christian youth living in the Galilee region of Israel. Its goal is building trust, a trust that will continue into the future and will touch many people. It introduces peacemaking and reconciliation through the shared activity of a dynamic steel drum band. Performance tours and spin-off bands demonstrate and stimulate peacemaking. Harvey Price is founder and executive director of Peace Drums. Mr. Price recently retired after 40 years as an associate professor of music at the University of Delaware. He is an active jazz and classical musician in the Philadelphia area and has performed and conducted clinics in the U.S. and abroad, including Austria, Israel, France, Greece, Chile, and Trinidad. Mr. Price is a former Salzburg Institute Fellow and holds a master's certificate from the Global Leaders Program. Mr. Price lives with his wife, pianist Linda Henderson, in Center City, Philadelphia. Welcome. It's good to be able to speak with you. I hope it's okay if I call you Harvey.
Absolutely.
How would you describe Peace Drums?
Well, if you asked me that question 8 years ago, I would have answered it one way. And I think like all programs that are dealing with young people and conflict and world issues, it's evolved sometime for the better and sometime for the worse. And I say for the worse because when we first started this program, it was very easy to talk about things like shared society and peace building and conflict resolution. And those were all terms that both parties, the Arab parties in Israel and the Jewish parties in Israel, pretty much accepted as terms that they could use. Now, the situation has deteriorated between the two societies, and granting organizations and even the U.S. government doesn't use the term shared society or conflict management, mitigation management. So Peace Drums, I'm describing it as a organization that is giving young people an opportunity to play in a music ensemble and to create a positive experience that reaches across, cultural and ethnic differences. So that's where we are now. We're not a peace building, because peace building doesn't really happen in the Middle East as much as we like to try. So I'm interested in getting young people both in the West Bank, Palestine, and in Israel to have a positive ensemble experience with people that they normally wouldn't be associating with.
Well, thankfully, I'd have to say that peace building does happen in the Middle East. I disagree with you on that, but perhaps the arena that you're dealing with it's become very difficult.
For sure.
And of course, it's always difficult, but basically this program is interviewing peace organizations that do work there. And Almep alone has almost 160 of them. So I would say it does happen, but it's difficult, admittedly. And it was, I found it interesting that I believe you began in Israel in 2014, but that was before the war.
Yes.
And perhaps you'd say it's gone downhill ever since. But at that time, can you talk about what you were doing?
In 2014, we were able to get, the education system in Israel is segregated to
Right.
almost 100%. There's a school here or there that isn't, but so we were able to get into a Jewish school and an Arab school and have students learn in a steel band separately and together. So, they were able to, and these are young kids. I mean, these are kids from like 10 years old to 14 or 15, which many organizations ignore and many granting organizations ignore. So we were doing that. It was really fun. The kids were able to tour together, rehearse together, perform together. They built some really good relationships while they were in school. They were able to visit one another's homes, one another's families, one another's towns. There was no problem with the kids from Haifa going to an Arab village like Ibalim or Shafaram to rehearse and to visit and to experience another culture, and vice versa. And it was really encouraging.
Before we go further, I wanted to play a clip to get an overall picture of peace drums.
Peace Drums got started when a group of clergy in Wilmington, Delaware decided to put a program together that was an investment in peace in the Middle East. And they approached me. I had an idea that was flying around for a while to do a youth steel band made up of Muslim, Christian, and Jewish students. And I put a band together, and I was amazed at how quickly musicians and non-musicians could come together and learn music on steel pan. And it quickly became evident to me that it was the ultimate tool for music education. Well, the steel drum from Trinidad is an instrument that doesn't belong to either the Arab or Jewish culture in Israel. It's an instrument that was born out of conflict about 70 years ago in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, this is their third international tour. Their first tour from Israel was to the US in 2016. Last October, we went to Vienna to help celebrate the 500th anniversary of the Lutheran Church. We got to perform in the most important concert hall in Europe called the Musikverein. And this year, we are helping the Leo Beck Educational Institute in Haifa to celebrate their 80th anniversary. And last week we were in Mannheim. Tonight we just finished a concert in London, and tomorrow we'll go to Zurich. Music is the ultimate nonverbal communication art form. They don't look at one another as Christian or Arab or Jewish or Muslim or Israeli, or they look at one another as a band member. Well, the future of Peace Drums is really about growing the band. We have senior high school kids, junior high school kids, elementary school kids. The more of those, the better. The more communities in Israel and Arab Jewish that get together, the better. So that's really the hope of it.
Now, after COVID and after the increased violence, let's have Harvey update our audience on Peace Drums activities.
The idea is that we are now a band. We're all one player. Even though we're playing different instruments, we're all one player. So we want to start and stop at the same time. And that'll take a little getting used to. If you play and you're the only one playing, you know, okay, it's not the end of the world. Peace Drums has been trying to put a steel band into Palestine really from its beginning. We started in Israel in 2014, and the dream was always to have bands in Israel and then bands in Palestine where the students, the children essentially would at some point come together. Where I really see Peace Drums heading, especially after the last 2.5 years of COVID, where I really see it headed is in a direction where youth who are craving now being together. Youth always like to be together, particularly in a musical ensemble. But now I really see the hunger for kids to sort of break out of their isolation and get together and play music. And I think that will supersede nationalities, cultures, and borders and barriers. A few years from now, we'll look back on this day that we started and say, remember that first lesson, you remember they first touched the drums, and you know the kids will be playing Up a Storm and playing for audiences all over the place, and also be interacting with other students from all over the world. Ready, play, and go, and 5, 4, 3. Very good, very good.
Next, we'll speak a bit about what happens after the high school program, when the Palestinian teens will be going to college, but the Israeli teens will go off to their mandatory service in the army.
What we found is when the kids graduate, you know, of course, the Jewish kids go into the army, which creates a tremendous barrier, and almost all of our students, our Arab students, would go to university. And there's some, but very little contact beyond the high school years, and that would be a different program, I guess. You know, so you know that's what we were dealing with, and the fact that we're also in the occupied territories makes it a kind of a different dynamic, because we cannot get Jewish kids from Israel into Bethlehem or Hebron or Beit Jala, and it's possible, but it's pretty difficult to get the kids from the occupied territories into Israel. So you know, our goal is to kind of try to get the kids in a common language, a common musical language, and then see if we can't somehow get those kids together in a third location, either Vienna or Italy or the US or some other place like that. But the fact that they cannot share experiences within the same landmass is crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. In fact, I just finished a 4-part series on Hands of Peace, and that's what they do. And you're right, what they do is they have high school kids come from Israel, Jewish Israeli kids, and Palestinian kids, both from the West Bank and from Palestinian citizens of Israel, and American kids, and they meet in Chicago and San Diego.
Right.
And yeah, they're over here, but I can't think of them now, but there are other music programs. I've interviewed people who play tennis there
Hmm.
together. Um, all types of, I've done about 75 interviews now with folks who mainly do meet there, but it's a struggle. You're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
it's horrid what they can be taught and about one another, and the anti-normalization movement is, I mean, it's dangerous for the Palestinian kids or the Palestinians of any age to meet with Israelis. But again, they do it, and they're
Yeah, but
really,
they don't do it in country.
no, they
And
do. No, they do.
okay.
But it's very
I'm
difficult, and
yeah.
sometimes they have to keep it secret, and
Right, right, right.
it's not pretty, but it is done and accomplished.
For instance, in the Hebron area,
Hmm.
there's in the northern, just in the northern Hebron area. Hebron's a pretty big city. In the
Hmm.
northern Hebron area, there's 535,000 school students and
Wow.
19 music teachers. That's not music education. That's not
Right.
giving kids a quality arts education, which every single study out shows that that's what builds kids' confidence and kids' view of society.
Hmm.
Is arts education. It's critical, and it's not much better in Israel itself, either in the Jewish sector or the Arab sector. So this is a big yawning gap that we're trying to fill very slightly.
Hmm.
And I'm really talking about like quality music education,
I
like
hear you.
where the kids are learning theory and composition and learning to read and everything that you do in a typical school music program, say in the United States. So
Yeah.
that's I find that to be more and more what we're focusing on, rather than trying to create a shared society or any of the other terms that are thrown out, there for a couple of years and then pushed to the side and then thrown out and pushed to the side because, uh, you know, it's disappointing to one faction or another when it doesn't happen. And the most recent is, the May of 2021, where
Right.
everyone just felt like, what shared society, what conflict mitigation, where there's riots in the streets of Haifa, the one
Hmm.
integrated town in Israel. So, you know, I, we can't tell the kids, hey, we're here to build peace, because they know, like, that's not it. That's not going to happen. We have to go to a different route. We can either abandon the program and take arts education, or in this case music education, away from kids that have it, which I'm not about to do,
Hmm.
or just reinforce the fact that you're going to learn music, you're going to acquire a skill, that could be used for later on in life, and you're going to see other people in a different light than you normally would. That's all we can do.
So are you saying then right now you don't have any programs with the kids meeting together?
We currently don't. Well, we certainly don't have any. I mean, the programs are up and running, so we don't
Right.
have we don't
But
have
separately.
but separately. And right now, like, we had a school in a Jewish town that was interested they saw the steel band and they were really interested, but they weren't interested in traveling less than 10 minutes to the local Arab village where the steel band was, to play with the kids. Like, they would do it if we would spend $40,000 and put a steel band in their school, and the kids could rehearse separately, and then maybe every once in a while get together. But they weren't interested in traveling to a perfectly lovely place. A place, by the way, they go to on Saturdays when everything in Israel is shut down, because the Arab villages are open and they'll sell, you can buy
Right.
groceries there, but they're not going to
Right.
let their kids travel and play music with Arab citizens of Israel. Like, okay, like, whatever.
Okay. Okay. So Do you no longer have any joint kids performing when
Currently,
you
we don't. Like as of today, and today really like we're the schools are just sort of ramping back up again after the month of High Holy Days.
Mm-hmm.
We currently don't, but we're searching and we're hoping to, and it's still a dream. But the situation on the ground currently is poisonous,
Yeah.
and it's I'm not going to lie and say, yeah, we're having these kids get together and play all the time and it's wonderful, because it's not. So we're searching for it. I mean, we did it in the past. I think we could do it again.
How long ago were you uh, able to do the program?
I mean, the last joint concert we had was probably before the last COVID shutdown.
So a couple years ago.
Like a year and a half. Like in a year and a half was the last time we did a great music video with the kids playing on the beach in Haifa, and it was, Jewish and Arab, and it was a really wonderful video. Really, 2021, right before May. It was the beginning of May 2021, and then we couldn't do anything between the riots going on and COVID, and
Right.
so this is the first. And I shouldn't say that. In February, we have a band up north that they play together, but not a concert, and not showcasing this interfaith band. You know, it's going to happen again. I'm not, but
Right.
whether it happens in Israel, I'm not sure. It's going to happen probably in Vienna, sooner than it happens in Israel, because it's just a very difficult situation there.
I hear you, and all of the peace organizations that I've dealt with have struggled with this, but part of it's just COVID. COVID shut down,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
programs here too.
Yep.
And so I hope you're not too discouraged,
Oh
because,
no, no.
and I understand right now there are, it seems like the attacks have uh, escalated again, and it's going to be difficult, but I'd like to say this too shall pass, and you'll be
Yeah.
able to move forward, because basically you do have this great program and we're able to operate. But yeah, pandemics have a way of getting in the way of people operating. And,
Yep.
also, Israel always has issues. What's
But
the history of the organization?
the history is that back in 2001, which was a long time ago, there was a request for proposal from the U.S. State Department, of
Mm,
which Condoleezza Rice was the then Secretary of State. And this was after we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan. And the call for proposal was conflict resolution through the arts in predominantly Muslim countries. That was the proposal. It's like, can we do and I saw that and thought, and because I had been doing steel band for quite some time at that point, and I thought, well, this would be really cool. I would love to do an Arab Jewish youth steel band, because I think that there would be some conflict resolution there, but possibilities of conflict resolution. You're dealing with an instrument that doesn't belong to any culture, or either of the cultures. That belongs to a lot of cultures, but neither of the cultures that were there. It
mhm.
was an instrument that grew out of conflict from Trinidad and Tobago. So I wrote a grant and it was rejected. It's like, okay, whatever, that happens. But it was in the back of my mind. And then about 3 years later, I was invited by a musician friend of mine in Israel to come start a steel band in the Ethiopian community in Israel, which has many, many, many problems. And so I brought a steel band, I brought instruments to Israel, and we started 2 Ethiopian steel bands, and they were extremely successful. They were mainly in the Netanya area. I had a teacher teaching, and it was really very successful. And it was supported by one of the cell phone companies in Israel at the time, which had a monopoly on all of the cell phone structures. And when they got sued by the Israeli government, and they broke up the cell phone company, and they only made $1 zillion rather than $1 billion, so they couldn't afford the $5,000 a year to run the steel band. So
Oy.
it actually stopped. That Ethiopian steel band stopped in about 2008 or 2009. But still in the back of my head, I wanted to do an Arab-Jewish steel band. So in 2010, I was performing with my university ensemble at a big outdoor event in Wilmington, Delaware. And a good friend of mine who's a former Presbyterian minister came up and asked me what I was up to. And, I told him, that I had, started this Ethiopian steel band, but what I really wanted to do was this Arab Jewish steel band. And he was very connected into the Palestinian community. He had been a teacher at the American University in Beirut in the 70s and was very knowledgeable about the Middle East. And he took that and kind of filed it in the back of his head. And a year later, there was a conference of clergy in Wilmington, Delaware, trying to deal with the Presbyterian vote to support BDS, the American Presbyterian vote to support BDS. And the Presbyterian ministers and the rabbis in Wilmington and imams and Catholic clergy got together to try to figure out how are we going to handle this? The Wilmington community is small. We don't want to alienate people. And they decided that they wanted to do a program that invested in peace rather than divested. I noticed 2011, they still use the word peace. So my friend suggested that I be brought in and pitch this idea. So I went in and I pitched it and I said, this is my idea. I think it would work. We're dealing with kind of a value neutral musical instrument. It doesn't belong to any of the societies. And ensemble music making is a proven, bringer together of communities. So they said, this is the program we want to do. How much does it cost? I said, well, it costs about $40,000 to take a steel band to get instruments from the U.S. or really from Trinidad to the U.S. to Israel. And they kind of blanched and, wow. So they went about raising money. And by 2012, 2013, they had done it. And we took our first set of instruments to Israel in 2013. Got the kids rehearsing in 2014. And by 2016, did our first U.S. tour. And then 2017, 18, and 19, they did European tours. And then we were about to do a second U.S. tour in April of 2020, and COVID shut everything down. So that's the Reader's Digest version of Peace Drums.
That's cool. That's really cool. So you stuck with it.
Yeah, and I'm still sticking with it, and I still believe in the power of ensemble music making, because now we've added another component. We're not only doing steel drums, we're doing marching drum lines. Somebody was very interested in that, and they funded $40,000 worth of instruments. So yeah, we're the performances that'll take place this holiday season, whether we have Jewish students or not, I hope we do. But we'll do, like in Bethlehem, they're going to do steel band Christmas tunes, on the main square in Bethlehem. The steel band will be there, and in the north of Israel, in Haifa and Shvar and Ibilin, they'll do holiday music, but they'll do it in combination with the steel band and a drum line, so it'll be really fun. And I'm going over there in November to kind of work with the teachers and the students and try to figure out what our repertoire is going to be.
So are you saying that now you basically are working on the Palestinian side and you don't have the Jewish Israeli side?
Currently we don't, but it doesn't mean we're not going to, and I don't want to wait. I don't want to run the program and not educate kids because we don't have, we have Muslim Christian, we don't have Jewish students. So it's like, okay, we'll wait for you guys to sort of get over yourselves and join us, because there's a lot going on here. So that's the way I feel about it.
So have you approached it to run the Jewish students on their own like you have on the Palestinian side?
Yeah, yeah.
And they don't want to do that?
Well, we had a couple different schools, and the let's see how to put this delicately, but I won't be delicate. The schools were really rather entitled, and the instruments are $40,000. Okay,
Right.
and our idea is we give them to the schools. They don't own them. We still own them. But please, you have 3,000 kids in a school. Don't have 5 kids playing a steel band that costs $40,000. Right? We're giving you instruments and we're giving you a teacher that we're paying for. And all you can muster is 5 students a week. Are you kidding me? Whereas the Arab schools have 20 kids playing a week. So it doesn't make sense for us to keep. So we have 3 sets of 10-piece band, 3 sets of instruments in Israel, and we kind of move them around, or we have been moving them around, depending on who we see is interested. But we talk to these people before we put the drums in there, and we say, look, we're giving you this gift. Please give your kids a gift of music. And to in the last school we were in, they could only muster 5 kids a week out of 3,000 kids. Come on, that tells me they're not interested.
So that's the wrong school. Yeah.
It's the wrong school, right? So we're going to find another school.
But yeah, there's kind of a lot of schools. So
yeah, but
yeah, but finding out after the fact, it's not really cool.
I mean, I have to tell you, my business partner Michael Shakur in Israel spends. Both of us work salary free. Neither one of us are getting paid for this. So
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So Michael spends, several hours a week visiting schools and talking to administrators, while he's doing his other job, and saying, but it's harder now because you have an Arab Christian Israel citizen going into a school and saying, we have this program where we want Arabs and Arabs and Jews working together, and they're going, thanks, but no thanks. We're not working. We're not having our children be put in danger by working with Arab kids. Like, okay, there's nothing you can say to that. There's really nothing you can say.
Yeah. But you could run it separately like you do the other, and when you can get together, you get together, right?
Sure, absolutely, and that's our goal. Coming, in the second half, this last quarter of 2022, and into 2023, and we'll see.
Yeah, I wish you luck on that. I would imagine doing it that way, at least as a entree, will after COVID, it will be more supported. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, COVID in Israel is pretty much done, right? Like no one even
Mm-hmm.
does. So it's not even COVID; it's the poison.
Yeah.
Poison atmosphere between the two societies right now.
Oh, absolutely. To try to do it together,
Yeah,
might be a bit much. But all along, even I understood when I spoke with you before that you couldn't even use the name peace drums.
Well, we can't use it in the occupied territories.
Yeah.
So in the occupied territories, yeah, it's like, forget it. So we call it Palestinian Steel Band, and they're, the unspoken truth is that we're not working in Israel even though we are, and they're not working with an organization that's working in Israel even though they are. So, but that's the political and adult line, right?
Yeah.
So do we not give music education to the kids? Come on, I don't, to me that's like caving into all of the crazy political crap that goes on.
Yeah.
It's the same in the U.S., right? Are we just gonna, believe what deal with what adults are saying, or are we gonna try to educate kids?
Yeah, I don't. What the adults are saying doesn't seem
No, it's
quite adult. when you did have the program, how did you deal with Israelis and Palestinians in that they don't speak the same language?
Well, all Palestinians speak Hebrew. No Israelis speak Arabic, which is another problem, by the way. And
Yeah,
they all speak English. So we had English
right.
speaking teachers. We had English speaking teachers from Trinidad with a lovely Trinidadian accent that all the kids tried to mimic, both the Arab and Jewish kids. So yeah, if when I go over and do workshops, I have several phrases in Arabic that I make sure I use, and some phrases in Hebrew. I know a little more Hebrew than I do Arabic, but there's not a language problem. Of course,
You
in the
make it
West
work.
Bank, yeah, in the West Bank, I don't. I mean, the West Bank we speak English. Obviously we're not speaking Hebrew. We were in Vienna this summer, and we did a workshop with Ukrainian refugee kids, a steel band workshop, and that was really interesting because the Ukrainian kids had only been there for since February, so this was July, and they were trying to learn German so that they could go to school, but really their language was either Ukrainian or Russian. So there were a couple layers before we could interpret what they were saying and what we were saying.
Well, certainly that area is a mess now too.
Yeah, but I mean, but the music happened. We got together on a Monday and Saturday. We did a fantastic concert with the kids, and they had a great. We gave them a positive, artistic, musical experience. That
Yeah.
for me, that solidified in my mind. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. I'm going to be 67 in January. I'm not under
Mazel
any
tov.
illusion. Thanks. I'm not under any illusion that I'm making peace. So what's the term mean? I was actually going to change it this summer. I was going to change the name, but I decided that I couldn't think of. We brainstormed. A bunch of us brainstormed, and I decided that peace drums means the feeling you get when you play music. You have a peaceful feeling when you play music. That's what it means. So sue me, as the expression goes.
Well, I'd say maybe I'm just more stubborn than you, but I do believe that you were making peace, and I I get why you're considering changing it, but I do believe that you are making peace when you do this and when you bring
I
them
mean,
together.
yeah, if not
I mean,
even,
you're not changing the whole situation,
no way.
but it's more of a grassroots movement.
Well, it's a grassroots movement, and unlike sports programs, right, which are built around competition, whether it's competition, Arabs and Jews on one team facing off against Arabs and Jews on another. Music is a cooperative.
Right.
It's not competition, and it's serious brain building, serious
Right.
spatial relationship. Like all of the there's been 15 years of psychological studies on what music does to the brain and to perception and to education in general. So that's what I want to bring.
I hear you. I hear you. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I hope you get more encouragement
Yeah,
in the next few months. Then, I mean, COVID really cast an ugly shadow. Obviously, what's going on now, there cast an ugly shadow, but people are doing it still. People are
yeah,
finding ways.
for sure. But the granting community, the money granting community is behind the times. They're not facing the fact that that the reality is such on. They're still using words like cross border. Cross border, really? Like, kids are not going to get on a bus and drive from Beit Jala 30 seconds into Jerusalem. They're not allowed. They're not allowed to leave Area C or Area A or Area B. They're on, and every day a Palestinian kid gets shot in the back by an Israeli soldier. I mean, it's such a poisonous atmosphere.
Well, and every day there are terrorist attacks too. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
both sides are really ugly.
both sides are very ugly, but the granting organizations are not taking that into, like, they'll say, well, give us some obstacles. Well, an obstacle is that they won't grant the army won't grant permits for sixth graders to go visit other sixth graders.
Yeah.
That's an obstacle.
Yeah, but I mean, also sixth graders are not going to drive themselves, and I mean there are adults involved, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a little bit. I hear you. I understand the intention is for that, but it gets complicated because sixth graders aren't going to drive themselves.
Right.
Um, so in the past, can you describe, how your organization was operating when you were able to? Hopefully, we're going to get to that again. So, how were you operating?
So we had a full-time music teacher, two different teachers from Trinidad. So we would bring the teacher from Trinidad on a volunteer visa. So we had to go through many hoops to get that person into Israel, especially from Trinidad, especially a person of African descent. Like, you land in Ben Gurion Airport as a person of African descent, and man, the first thing they do is take you into the back room and hold you for 3 hours and grill you. I mean, everybody we brought in, like you can't, like with the Trinidadian passport, like you can enter Israel, on a visitor's visa for 3 months, like you can from everywhere else. But the profiling of people with dark skin and dreadlocks is that they don't believe a word you're going to say. Like, it's way different than an old Jewish white guy like me landing in Israel and saying, I'm visiting my cousin. So that was always interesting. But twice we brought an Afro-Caribbean woman and then an Afro-Caribbean man, both of who we interviewed. I went to Trinidad and interviewed them, paid for them to get to Israel, paid their rent, paid them a weekly stipend, and they taught, anywhere from like 10 to 20 hours a week, these kids. And it was really great. Like the kids, this was the first time both the Arab and the Jewish kids had a person of African descent be a teacher or be someone in a dominant role, which was a really cool thing. And the fact that he was teaching music and getting them to, and bringing their culture, the Trinidadian steel band culture, to Israel was really great. So that's how it operated. And my business partner there, Michael Shakur, kind of did all of the dirty work. Like, oh, we have a concert next week. I got to get the bus. I got to get the truck. I got to, get permission slips. I got to, get drinks for the kids or lunch for the kids. So each one of those events was quite labor intensive. And then I would go like twice, maybe 3 times a year, and do workshops and talk with parents and try to get, just try to be the American face of the program.
Are any of the Ethiopian Jews who are already in Israel trained in steel bands or steel drums?
The last of that group, I think, was 07 or 08. So
And they didn't continue with it, or
no, because there was nobody to teach them.
right.
The cell phone company wouldn't pay for the teacher. So that and that's when I realized I got to raise money to pay the teacher. I can't rely on some corporate entity in Israel to
Got it.
that it was good enough to pay a music teacher.
Got it. And you're using teachers from Trinidad because obviously it's their music, so they are the best trained, but there's there's no Jewish men in the US or anybody else who are trained in it that would participate, or?
There might be, but chances are they couldn't take the time off to move to Israel and teach. So
I
yeah,
see.
yeah.
And nobody there. Well,
And I would,
you really picked a hard instrument, it sounds like, right?
well, I mean, I picked an easy ensemble instrument. If I were going to do a string ensemble, that would be way harder because
I
we'd have to
see.
have individual private lessons for X
Ah,
number of years before the kids could even make a sound.
I
This instrument
see.
is very easy to learn, and you can have an ensemble playing within 5 minutes
Oh,
of,
cool.
yeah, and that's
So
the beauty of it.
ah,
That's the beauty of it.
yeah, good news and bad news,
Yeah,
huh?
good news, bad news.
So when they were, are there different kinds of steel drums?
Yeah,
Or are they the same
um,
instrument, or?
imagine a choir, right? Soprano, alto,
Yeah,
tenor, bass choir.
uh-huh.
That's the way they operate. So you have a soprano, alto, tenor, bass. It's a full, 8 octaves like you have on a piano so you have, soprano drums and tenor
Oh,
drums and baritone drums and bass. Yeah.
interesting. And then okay, so I'm imagining these kids, this is totally unfamiliar to them. How do they know when to play it? I mean, are you choosing songs that all the kids know?
Nope,
Or
nope, nope. We teach
so
it.
how do you coordinate that?
That's that's why you use experienced music educators. So you're teaching.
Yeah, but it sounds like they have to be miracle workers, not.
They don't have to be miracle workers, but they do. But steel band is a miracle instrument in that respect in terms of teaching. It's the best music education tool ever invented. It wasn't invented for that, but it turns out it is the best. Like I said, we got Ukrainian refugee kids together on a Monday. None of them had seen a steel drum before. We had
Yeah.
like a 15, 16 piece ensemble, and by Saturday we did an hour-long concert. There's a way to do it. You teach some by rote. In other words, play this note, this note, this note. If a kid reads music, then you can put music up in front of them, and they learn where the notes are on a drum. But yeah, it's kind of a miracle. You're right. It's kind of a miracle instrument, and you're getting kids to play music right away without struggling to make a sound on a clarinet or a flute or a violin or a trumpet.
When you do have, when you're organized and you did have these concerts, so am I understanding correctly where you had the Jewish Israelis playing amongst themselves and you had the Palestinian kids playing amongst themselves, and then how often did you bring them together so they could practice?
So, so obviously they were learning the same music because they had the same teacher. So, and the idea was that we would bring them together. So I think it was a weekly rehearsal and a bi-monthly rehearsal together. And then as a concert came up, it was like, hey, we need to get together every day and really polish this. So, yeah. And then, of
And
course,
so
when
they lived close enough where they could do that.
they lived, Haifa to Ibilin is probably a half hour,
Mm,
maybe 40 minutes, depending on traffic.
hmm.
So they get a bus, you know, yeah, and nobody ever said, "Oh, I'm not going to that place where those people
Hmm.
are." And in some cases, like we had an Arab school in Haifa, down by the
Hmm.
port called the St. John School, a lovely place, and then we had a Jewish school up in the top of near Stella Maris. So that was just a bus ride, right? The kids could actually get on a bus and either go
Hmm.
down to the port or go up to Stella Maris and rehearse. So, that was pretty close. And then when they were on tour, of course, they were captive audience, so we could rehearse an hour or two every day and then go play a concert. So that was kind of fun.
Did they have much time to interact with one another?
Yeah, all the time. Sure, lunch, meals during the rehearsal, before the concerts, after the concerts, absolutely.
How did that go?
It went well. They were absolutely friendly. there were several that really bonded, really bonded. That's what I was saying, went to one another's homes, but the Army breaks that up.
Right.
When you're in the Army and your job is to protect the Jews from the Arabs, then that's kind of a weird message.
Yeah, at Hands of Peace, I've seen it work, but that's after they've been together for 3 weeks, and um, but it is very encouraging that it does work. And even in the Army, I've seen them communicate with one another.
Yeah.
However, I found it really interesting that, I would think, okay, you've been friends with these kids, and even during, the clashes in May and in 2014, each side called each other and were worried about each other if they were okay with what was going on, which was really beautiful. But when it came to the Army, there was, I remember, I guess it was the kids from this past summer, they were saying that where in my ignorance, not living in that situation, I would thought, okay, you've been friends with these kids and you call each other during the skirmishes and you're worried about them. Therefore, I thought, let's say you do see your friend who is now in the Army. I thought that would make them feel, oh, good, I know this person at this checkpoint. I'll be safe or whatever. But in their head, I heard, now they're my enemy.
Of course.
And well, to me, it wasn't, of course. I was surprised by that.
Okay,
Maybe
well,
it's my ignorance, because it's like, how could you be friends today and tomorrow because you have to go on your service, you're not.
because
But
you're putting on a uniform that says
I know.
I have it over you. That's
Yeah,
why.
no, I know. And there's such a emphasis on power or
Oh
lack of
yes.
power
Oh yes.
in
Oh
the
yes.
culture.
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, it's so complicated, unfortunately.
I don't look at it as complicated. It's not that
Really?
complicated. It's what it is, and it'll stay what it is as long as the politics don't change, and it'll
Yeah,
stay what it is as long as the politicians don't change, and as long
right.
as society doesn't change. It's not that complicated. Like people say, "Oh, Arab-Israeli conflict, it goes back thousands and thousands of years." No, it doesn't. It only goes back
Right.
about 80, 90 years. Are we
I
talking?
mean, I agree with you. I mean, I've
Yeah,
said a million times, it could be solved today.
it could be solved today.
All they have to do is two things.
Play steel band together.
No, well, but that would help. But is stop hurting each other,
Right.
number one, and speak to each other. Because every time they do and they interact, it's really sad, but they are shocked
Yeah.
that both of them are human
The humanity.
and that they
I agree.
want the same things.
Yep.
And they're not these evil goblins who are trying to harm the other. And that has a profound impact on them.
Yes, but whether it's a lasting impact is another matter. When you go to the beach in Haifa or the beach in Tel Aviv, I'm always struck by like how everybody wants just the same thing, likes to take their kids to the beach
Yeah.
and have a relaxing time, regardless of how you're dressed. I'm always struck by that, and yeah, it's a really rough situation, and quite frankly, to take the money out of the equation, because there's a lot of money to be made in conflict. There's a lot of money to be made in military conflict. There's also a lot of money to be made in saying, there's conflict between Arabs and Jews. Give me money to support my side. Like that's a serious fundraiser, And until you can take the money out of the equation, where there's money to be made, just ask Donald Trump. The crap will.
Let's not go there.
It's the same
Man,
thing. It's the same thing.
My thoughts were exactly as you were talking, but since that we have enough to deal with talking about this issue, let alone
Yeah.
that.
And by the way, he was the single biggest impediment to my program.
Seriously?
Yes.
Because
we had a school in Ramallah. It was a Lutheran school in Ramallah in 2016 that wanted us to put a steel band into the school and start a steel band there and try to go cross border. 2016, it's not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Michael Shakur visited 2 or 3 times, and we were all set to start to raise money, and then Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and they turned around and said, we're not working with Americans anymore. That was the first thing. The second thing was our first USAID grant was held up for 6 to 7 months. Like, we were given the go-ahead, you're going to get this $150,000, go ahead and start spending money, blah, 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 this is coming. And then it never showed up. And it just never showed up. And I kept calling there saying, well, it's stuck in Congress, or it's there. So I went ahead, bought a new band to take to Israel, $40,000. Finally gets released, right? Finally, I get a phone call, 5 o'clock in the morning because it's late in Israel. It's been released. Open up a bank account. We're going to send you the first. So I'm going, man, what took so long? So you want to know what took so long? A couple months later, I'm watching the impeachment hearings about Trump talking to Zelensky. And he wants him to do a favor for me. He's going to hold up armaments until he says that Biden committed these crimes, right? And I'm watching one of the State Department people talk about not just the implication in Ukraine, but the implication for all foreign assistance. Trump held up all foreign assistance. That's the one thing that people don't realize. No one got, whether it was military or USAID or arts grants, he stopped all grants that had anything to do with overseas programs.
I think he may have stopped anything that had to do with anything, trying to get people to say he was right.
Yeah. So, I couldn't believe this. I said, I've got this stinky little non-for-profit, and this guy has looms larger than I can possibly imagine. Let alone putting David Friedman as the ambassador to Israel from the U.S., who poison any kind of relationship between Arabs and Israelis, And then the business with the embassy was horrible, and just went from there. So I couldn't believe it. I said, why is this? It's bad enough that he's president of the United States. He's killing my program.
So when you did have the program, how many kids were you serving?
The maximum we had right before COVID was 150 kids a week.
Wow.
I loved it. It was great. And we're back up to 50, 90. We're probably at 130, 120 kids a week currently.
But they're all Palestinian kids?
They're all Palestinian currently.
Right.
Or Palestinian citizens of Israel or Palestinians in the occupied territory. So if we get one school and the school decides we can have 20 students a week, that would be awesome. We'd be back up to those numbers right away.
And how do the parents react to all of this? I mean, they have to give permission.
React to which?
Well, when the program was together,
Oh, the kid. I
that's
mean,
more obviously when it's their kid receiving free music education and
and
it's
touring the world.
they're entering the world and it's their own community, what's wrong with that?
Yeah,
But
there was nothing wrong with it.
right, but
But there were parents that wouldn't send their kids. So okay, you don't want to send your kid, we'll get somebody else.
so they let them practice, but they wouldn't let them meet with each other and go on tour. Is that what
No, no, they
happened?
did. They did. I mean,
No, but I mean, some parents wouldn't.
no, no, some parents didn't want to be in the program at all.
Oh, oh, oh.
Yeah, it wasn't
So,
like
so if they participated, then they did tour
absolutely,
together. I see.
absolutely,
I
absolutely,
see.
100%.
Cool. So, where did you perform?
Well, in 2016, we did a 10-day tour in the U.S. where we performed mainly. We were in Philadelphia, we were in Manhattan, we were up in the wealthy suburbs of New York, where like Mount Kisco and those areas. They did a performance down in D.C. It was really great. And then then when we went to Europe, they did Germany, Mannheim, London, Switzerland. I think that's it. I think that's it. So they did in
Vienna?
those. Vienna. Sorry. Yeah, definitely Vienna. Definitely Vienna. I forgot all. Yeah, they were invited in 2017 to participate in the 500th anniversary of the Lutheran Church of the Reformation,
Wow.
and the Prime Minister's office of Vienna invited us, and we did a concert at the most important concert hall in all of Europe called the Musikverein,
Hmm.
and it was amazing. And we
What
were there.
what kind of I mean, would I recognize the music that you play?
We did arrangements of pop tunes with symphony orchestras like Besame Mucho and Under the
Oh,
Sea and stuff like that. Yeah, we did music. We combined with a symphony orchestra there, and we did yeah. I mean, it was serious music making. I mean, these were
mhm.
like some like eighth and ninth graders playing on stage at the Music Verein in front of a sold out house, in front of every major politician in Vienna, with a symphony orchestra, with a conductor. It's like, okay, it doesn't
Wow.
really get any better.
No, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So what did you consider your greatest accomplishments to
Well,
be?
that was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what my single greatest accomplishment. So there was an amazing young woman who I'm still friendly with, who's actually now part of our board of
Oh.
directors. She
Hmm.
lives she lives in Israel. She's a Muslim Arab who lives in Israel. She's
Hmm.
in like pre-med right now. So we were in Switzerland,
Hmm.
and we did a bunch of concerts in Switzerland, like maybe 4 in 2 days. It was crazy. And one of them was at a Jewish old age home. And we went there, and the kids performed. It's half and half. I think there were 18 of us. There was 9 Arab kids, 9 Jewish kids, and we played for these people pretty infirm, right?
Hmm.
And we were really warned, like, you can come in and maybe 20 minutes, but they get really tired and blah blah blah. And I'm thinking to myself, I've played at senior centers for 40 years. Once
Hmm.
the music starts, they don't want you to stop. And
Yeah.
it's exactly what happened. And an
Yeah.
hour and a half later, we stopped, but they didn't want us to stop, right?
Yeah.
So we're there, and there were, obviously some concentration camp survivors,
Mm.
and I said to my students, why don't you go mingle with these people? So this one, Arab Muslim girl goes and seeks out maybe the most frail looking woman
Right.
who's probably speaking German, right? Or Swiss. Excuse me. So she walks up and she says, how are you today? And the woman takes her hand as if she's her granddaughter.
Yeah.
and they go, and I'm just watching this with like tears
Yeah.
because there's a super connection between this 90-plus-year-old Jewish woman in this nursing home and an Arab Muslim girl from Israel who just performed for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like we could have ended the program there.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
It was really beautiful. It was really beautiful.
That's very cool. Any other
Yeah.
stories from your
I mean, there's
experiences?
bits and pieces like that, but real human interactions. Where people come up. We were on tour in the U.S. and people come up and said, "I don't know who's Arab and who's Jewish on stage," and I would go, "Right." Things like that.
That's a
Right?
good thing, right?
Yeah. There's Arabs that live in Israel. You get that a lot.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah, 20%.
So, wow. Wow.
So, yeah.
So, on a personal note, where were you born and raised?
Right here in Philadelphia, about 2 miles from where I'm sitting.
And what personally made you found Peace Drums?
I guess because I'm a kind of a socially conscious person, and I'm a musician, and it's like, what can a musician do who's socially conscious, right? Like obviously vote for people, but like I don't have time to like lobby legislation. I'm busy practicing and performing. So, it's there's a huge worldwide movement of using music for social consciousness.
Right.
So it's kind of a natural fit.
And
if you're a musician and you're not looking around you at the greater world and thinking of like can I use my music for then you're not really thinking.
And the interest in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, obviously you're Jewish, but
Yeah.
it's quite easy when you're an American to care about Israel because we're raised to care about Israel. However,
Right.
Dipping your toe into this mess is quite another story. So what made you take the leap?
I mean, I think if you're an American Jew, you have two options, maybe three. I'm going to say three options. One option is to give money to to right-wing organizations who support the status quo, and like that's what you do, and everything else, that's one option. The second option is just to say, forget it. It's a mess. It doesn't concern me. I don't agree with anything that goes on there. And the third option is to say, let me dip my toe in and see if there's a way to foster change. And also, like both my wife and I, we are like travel addicts.
Oh, I know that feeling.
So
I love it. Yeah.
The dirty secret is we get to travel and like do a program and eat great food and hang out with cool people.
Yeah, what's not to like, right?
What's there not to like?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. The only thing is I haven't figured out a way to monetize how to do that. You have.
Well, I'm not drawing a salary.
No, but neither have I for 8 years.
Yeah.
But I love it. And
it's great fun.
The people like yourself that I get to meet, I mean, it's so informative, and I love education, and I love learning new things, and I'm a very curious person. So I love it.
Too.
Love it.
Me too.
So for your last question, what are your goals for Peace Drums in 2023?
But actually 2024 is our 10-year anniversary, so I've been like scratching my head about that. And We have a board meeting next week, and I want to talk about that. But really, 2023 is like to get a viable Jewish partner, Jewish school, and to try to find some money to put another steel band maybe in the West Bank, because we have 3 schools rehearsing on one set of instruments. So, it'd be nice to get one closer to Hebron, and to just, raise the consciousness of it. And, that like in February, there's a synagogue trip from the Wilmington area, and we're going to perform for them. Like we did last February too. There was a trip, or July, sorry, last July there was a trip, a synagogue trip, and somebody contacted me, and I said, come to this Arab village, which they like. These tours never go into Arab villages, and come hear a concert, and they did, and we raised consciousness. I mean, these people were like blown away by there's Arab kids that play music and are friendly, and there's Arab parents that are friendly. So more of that.
Okay, so
Yeah, more of that.
So you still are working on peace. You just
yeah, let's call it consciousness raising. If it leads to peace, then awesome. But I'm not going to sell the snake oil of peace. Say, hey, yeah, we're creating peace in the Middle East. Let's raise some consciousness. Let's get people to look past their differences. Let's educate Americans about this, not just Jews, but all Americans. Like, not everyone is Osama bin Laden. One of my closest friends in Israel is a wonderful man named Osama Daim. And every time I mention, somebody goes, Osama? I said, I don't even think about that anymore. Like, just basic crap like that.
Yeah, well, it's because you're more versed in it and, know people. Yeah, I mean, there's always a fear of the unknown for people. And in this particular conflict, rightly so in many instances. So,
I say
so it's not like, well, no, but you can't really say that, because there is the potential for danger that everyone knows about.
Yeah, but let's be realistic. I live in the city of Philadelphia where there's 2 murders a day minimum. I'm not talking about shootings. I'm talking about gun violence in the city of Philadelphia is off the charts. Right. But in a place like Israel and a place like Jerusalem, which is its own kind of thing, if there's an argument at a falafel stand in Jerusalem, the magnifying glass on Jerusalem is so intense that it makes international headlines.
Yeah, I totally agree. However, there's a reason for the fear, but probably, I face it all the time. 95% of both sides want peace. You just don't hear about it in the news.
For sure you don't.
And that's why I do this.
Yeah.
Because
you definitely don't hear about it.
I would get so irritated when I got back from our trip in 2014, and all you heard about are the 2 sides trying to kill each other, and there's so much more going on than that.
Have you not been? When's the last time you were there?
2014.
Okay. Oh, you should go over.
Again, for me, I'm scared. Admittedly, I am, after running to bomb shelters and
that's
the missiles and all that. Yeah. I know that doesn't happen every day. However, lately it can, because it's kicked up again. And so, I mean, and that was my second trip to Israel. The first time that didn't happen, but there was, there were some conflicts going on, but not like that.
Yeah.
But that kind of makes an impression on you, and admittedly, that I don't want to go through that again.
I mean, since 14, I've been there 10 times, 11 times.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I don't have the funding to do that like that. Yeah. But I love Israel, and
Yeah.
my whole motivation is call it awareness of one another rather than peace. But bottom line is there are many people willing to and who want to be able to exist and live together because they already do, but
No
there's
question.
just not the interaction.
Right.
They all live together. They're right there, but
Yeah.
they're segregated and they associate perhaps for work or something like that. But, after work, most of them don't associate. And that's where there's difficulties.
For sure.
So,
Well, if you ever decide to go, let me know. I have cheap
mm,
digs and
cool,
I could send you on the budget tour.
cool, cool. So thanks so much, Harvey, for
Sure.
your work on peace between Israelis and Palestinians. And I hope you don't get discouraged. And I
No, no,
hope
no,
that
no.
you find, I'm sure you're going to find on the Israeli side folks to work with now that COVID's in
I think so.
the
I think so.
past.
We just
Really enjoyed learning about how music bridges the gap between these peoples and their conflict. Next week, we hope you'll join us as we meet with Project Rosanna, who organizes volunteers to transport mainly Palestinian children for medical treatment in
Mm,
Israeli hospitals from checkpoints on the border of Gaza and the West Bank.
wow.
Project Rosanna was launched in 2013 to advance people to people peace building between Israelis and Palestinians through health, targeting the broader effects of cross border cooperation and project specific outcomes in health improvement. Over the last decade,
Great.
Project Rosanna, as a trusted international organization, has facilitated dozens of cross border collaborations between healthcare practitioners and institutions while addressing health development needs. These projects serve to reduce barriers to peaceful interactions in public health and promote sustainable health institutions through capacity building and the delivery of quality health services. We hope you'll join us, and for now, we pray that everyone will someday live in peace, shalom, and salam.